Good afternoon and welcome to the Studio Founders Program information session. My name is Michelle and I'll be moderating today's session. Today we're joined by Program EIR's David McKee, Tim Parsons, Colin Kinner of Startup On-Ramp, CEO of the studio, Chantel, and Jazz and Kylie, who are previous program participants of the Studio Founders Program, who have just completed. We'd like to encourage our viewers to pop all their questions in the Q&A chat. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners on the land on which we meet, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Thank you. I'll hand over to Chantel now.
Hey everyone, welcome to everyone in this session and all our attendees as well. So we'll just have a bit of a chat today, tell you about the Founders Program, and please just pop any questions in the Q&A or the chat as we go. So let's kick off with David McKee. David, I'm going to ask you first, why as a serial entrepreneur and the studio's expert in residence, why would people want to do the Founders Program?
There's a little bit of a printer going, so I'm going to apologize. So I think that the Founders Program gives a fantastic introduction for entrepreneurs. I think one of the things that I would like to position this is a little bit of a bigger picture. Why does entrepreneurship work actually at all? And I think we're going through a digital transformation, of the world, industry by industry. And really, when I look at the world, there are legacy companies trying to keep on to the old world, and there are entrepreneurs trying to create the new world. And the studio is a fantastic opportunity to get the basics, to start learning more about what skills you need to become an entrepreneur. And I would encourage entrepreneurs, don't think of it as a one-off investment of time. Think of it as an investment in yourself over the long term. So I see entrepreneurship as a profession, not as a single thing with one startup.
So let's go to Kylie and Jazz now, and Scott as well. So you have been part of previous cohorts at the Studio Founders Program. Tell me, for you, as startups, as entrepreneurs, why did you do the program, and what were the key what were some of the key values that you got from being in the cohort? Maybe Kylie, if you want to go first.
Hi everyone. Well, I thought it was a brilliant program. I joined with Jazz. We're doing some work together, a company together, and I've done startups in the past. But what it actually gave us was a way of working through our ideas, and it sort of lifted the veil in a whole area that has changed dramatically over the years, which is venture capital funding. Who's in that sector, how you pitch to them, and that there's a whole ecosystem there. So we sort of came in with I did preconceived ideas about how we were going to pitch or run the company or start the company, and everything was sort of really challenged, and a huge education for us, as well as very entertaining as well.
Thanks. Jazz, do you want to add to that?
Thanks. Yes, I'll jump in and welcome everyone. I can't encourage you enough to join this program. It was just amazing for Kylie and I. We are co-founders, so we were unusual in the cohort in that we were the only co-founders in there together. If you do have people that you're working on your business with, and there were lots of sole founders in our group, and it was just amazing to meet people doing that. But if you do have co-founders, I really encourage you to do it together, because Kylie and I really enjoyed the ability to, as Kylie says, sort of have a framework to work from, but also to test our ideas. And there was a nice way in which some structure in which we could have conversations around things that were challenging to us as co-founders, around our preconceptions about the way we would do things, and maybe some of the ideas that we'd had as individuals coming in together. And the Studios program really did actually provide that structure for us to have those conversations in sort of a really open way, to bounce that off all of the advisors and also our cohort as well. It was fabulous. Thanks, Chantal. Thank
you, Jazz. And Scott, maybe we'll go to you next as well. You've been, you're very entrepreneurial. You've been an entrepreneur for a while. You've been running Huments. So you were already an existing founder who was really looking to scale their business more. So talk to me about what was the value for you. What were some key values for you from the program?
Yeah, thanks, Chantal, and thanks again for the program and for all the team that put it together. So I've been around the block a few times, as you sort of implied, and that said, still got gaps, and also coming at it from being a solo founder. And so I found that, really helpful for refining pitch and just revisiting some of the basics. But what excited me more was to hear the off the record stuff on the Friday afternoons with the array of incredible talent we have here in Australia, who are otherwise got to watch their words more carefully. Now, also last year when COVID hit, we decided, when I say we, that's my multiple personalities as a solo founder, decided to join an accelerator. So I've sort of also, had visibility to probably 2 or 3 other accelerators in inspecting to choose which one last year. And I got to say, what Colin's put together as well is a brilliant reference point. And it's not exhausting, but it's very effective and comprehensive.
Thank you, Scott. So what Scott's referring to there is Colin, who we've got here from Startup On-Ramp. So the studio partners with Startup On-Ramp to deliver the online component of the program. So just for anyone joining this, just wanting to know quickly what the program is. The program is 7 weeks intensive. Every Friday, the cohort comes together for a whole day of online masterclasses, workshops, and different activities, talks from different other founders, connections to different VCs, all different other ways that you can understand investment, gain investment. And then what you're also doing is you're getting access to the Startup On-Ramp program, which is an online component that you're doing as well throughout that 7 weeks. And you can engage with Colin online in terms of their forum, but also Colin will then do specialist sessions with us called Ask Me Anything sessions throughout the 7 weeks. So Colin, this is a good time to go to you. Tell us why, what you've done with Startup On-Ramp, why the Startup On-Ramp program is so valuable.
Sure. Well, thanks, Chantal. Yeah, look, we've been partnered with the studio since the first cohort of this program, and it's a really nice fit. So as Chantal said, we've created an online course. I don't actually like the use of the word course because it's more than that, but it's effectively some content that's intended to guide entrepreneurs through the journey of the first couple of years of their startup with a couple of objectives. One is to really show you what best practice looks like. What are all of the things that successful entrepreneurs tend to do really well early on so that you can emulate that. And then on the flip side, what are all the things that people tend to come unstuck on that inadvertently they do, and it actually causes their company to fail or to grow a whole lot slower than it could. And so in the course, we discuss a lot of those learnings with successful founders, with investors, subject matter experts. And I think it actually works really well blending that, which people can go through in their own time. They can sit on the sofa in their pajamas and go through the content if they like. Then with the real-time sessions that you run with other founders and investors and other experts, I'm always blown away at the outcomes that we see from the program. So I'm actually a bit surprised that more people aren't kind of starting companies using a program like this as their kind of launch pad, because I see a lot of people to this day who start startups and learn by trial and error. And that's a really expensive and painful way to learn. So I kind of feel like this is a no-brainer.
And thank you, Colin. And also, you know, the big value is if you've already been running a business like Scott and also like Kylie and Jazz. I mean, Kylie and Jazz already run successful businesses. There's a lot to gain from looking at what you're doing through the lens of Startup On-Ramp program and the Studio Founders program in tandem. And then we've got Tim Parsons joining our call here, our panel. Hi, Tim. Great to see you, and thank you for your being available today. So Tim, everyone, Tim Parsons is on the board of the studio, but also does some, well, besides being sort of Mr. Space New South Wales and wearing many, many hats across multiple areas of sort of the startup ecosystem. Tim also runs our pitch lab for the studio, but also does some specialist pitch sessions for the cohort. So Tim, over to you. Why should people think about enrolling in a program like the Studio Founders program?
Yeah, Chantal, thank you for that intro. I'll try to live up to it. I think people, what we found in the statistics, pre and post people going through the Founders Program, is in particular an increase in their confidence to pitch their business on the spot, to come up with something that really crystallizes what's unique about what they're trying to do and the potential value of what they're trying to do, and also to invite people to collaborate with them. And that's a lot to take on. And what I found, even as a founder, and even some of my projects that I'm doing now, it's very tough to do that when you're you're really close to these things. You need the ability to somehow try to mirror that other person and how they're going to respond to you and iterate that in a safe place. And so our coaching and the ability to also compare how other folks in your cohort are struggling with the same challenge of, how do I tell a story about my new company, about my new innovation that's going to trigger the response that's going to help me build that business, help me build that project, right? And I think that even though it sounds very simple, that storytelling in a very crisp way is fundamental to the whole culture of startups. The nature of pitching as a way to test the maturity, the level of development, the velocity, in terms of entrepreneurial learning speed of a business. That's something that we've learned from Hollywood. Hollywood has developed this incredible, over 100 years, has developed this incredible ability to decide whether we're going to invest in a particular movie property or a TV property through pitching, because it really is a way to test the mettle of that founder and also test whether the pieces come together. And the key word I'm using is test. So that's another thing that we work on very hard, is to try to get folks to understand that, it's not about perfection. It's about actually creating that learning mindset and running experiments, and telling a story about your startup is one of the simplest experiments you could run.
Thank you, Tim. That's really fantastic insights. And as Tim said, yeah, we actually collect a lot of data around, when the cohort comes in and when they depart, so we actually have some really great hard data on how much impact the actual program has on people, because we ask them specific questions around how they've improved across all these different areas after that 7 weeks. So we know that there is a value. Besides that, as Scott previously said, you get to meet some fantastic founders that have already, a lot of them have been alumni of the studio. And they're all, they're out there, they've been in the incubator, they're scaling, and, they haven't been, they've been around for a few years. There's that idea that, they're overnight successes that have taken, 5 or 6 years, but it's through those sort of afternoon sessions, we always we end the day with that, where you really get to learn about other founder journeys, and that no journey is the same. While there are lots of similar themes. And I think that it's things like that you're just really getting immersed and exposed to all the different parts of the ecosystem, but also getting specific tools to help you on your journey. So any questions, please pop any questions in the Q&A. and we'll endeavour to answer them. We've got David McKeague, back to you. So to maybe talk about your previous, what you're doing now, curious thing, why that was an opportunity in terms of the startup, in terms of a business, and how, and then what your journey has been so far.
So my current startup, curious thing, is a machine ringing you and talking to you. So it sounds a bit confronting. So one of the first parts of a startup is coming up with a counterintuitive idea. Obviously, today we all have robocallers and they're driving us crazy. But I believe that in a startup, the seriously key thing is the why now question. What's going on? And if we think of it from a technology lens, if you look at WaveNet voices, I can dynamically create any voice and it can read to you. But also with something called language models, you can actually understand what the other side is saying. So curious thing is about enabling a computer to be curious and to ask questions. And in fact, to ask open questions. So tell me about a problem you've had in your life, almost like the therapist. So it's the opposite of an Alexa. So we started at the studio. We went through what you'd call an institutional seed round, and then a seed plus round. We're currently 24 staff, scaling really nicely. One of the use cases we're being used more recently is in Western Sydney, where nurses are using us to extend the hospital into the home. So check-in calls, how you're feeling. So when you're isolating at home. So these have the duty of care. And also there's a whole set of use cases about health and wellness. And we're just going, we're just scaling, in the US, doing our crazy thing. I think one of the things that I would like to share is each startup, by definition, has to be, and Chantel said it, is unique. And actually, usually there's not a clear definition or a clear category. And you hear it even in me describing it. You could easily say, oh, it's like a call center, or you could say it's like robotic dialing, and then you'd have all these bad thoughts. From a startup perspective, you discover something that I'm really into these days, earn secrets. So now an earned secret is, how do you make voice work, synthetic voice work? So we're proud of being a robot, so we never pretend to be a person, and it is a robot, but we can give you a warning which says it's the hospital, it's calling you, or we're going to call you in 30 minutes. So how do you make a voice call a wanted thing, which is the opposite of a robocaller? And it turns out you have to earn specialized secrets, actually, on the user experience, the interaction. As I tell people, we're proud of being a robot, so we never pretend to be a human. So these are little things that you build into your startup through customer discovery, but earn secrets are things that I know that other people, that aren't obvious. And that actually means, as you end up with more earned secrets, that means that the elevator pitch is harder and harder, because you're trying to convey a story of something that's counterintuitive, if you see what I mean. Because the first thing you go, oh, I hate robocallers, I can't think of anything more. So how do I make that work? But then how do I present that story both to customers and to investors such that they don't switch off? So there's a whole knack. Anyway, so we're scaling very well as a startup, and we're just going along, doing our stuff.
Thank you, David. Everyone, I actually met David when I did my research that led to the studio, and David was going through the Time Warner accelerator program called Media Camp with his previous startup that he has since exited. So that was, yeah, it was fantastic. It was very fortuitous meeting David. So Colin, what do you think at the moment are the biggest challenge in the current sort of landscape? What's the, COVID has really 10x'd everything in terms of the amount of people creating businesses, starting startups. So what are some of the challenges you think for startups now? There's a lot more awareness about the different technical tools out there, the different digital platforms you can use. What are the challenges, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think David highlighted one of them, which I see a lot, and that is people who are working on things that really are not unique and are not based on any particularly deep insights. So I think, I'm always pleased when I see founders who are receptive to feedback, whether it's from customers or other people who've got experience in their own startups, so that they can critically evaluate their idea. Because I think one of the worst things that can happen is people get so latched onto their idea that they pursue it, even when a sane person would say, look, everyone I'm talking to tells me that this isn't differentiated enough from all of the other things that are out there that are like it. So I think that's a real challenge, but it's actually quite easy to overcome if you surround yourself with the sorts of people that are available for anyone who goes through the studio's founder program. The other challenge I see is team building. So obviously at the moment, face-to-face interaction is pretty hard. There aren't the same, events where you can mill around and meet people at the Startup Hub or anywhere else in your ecosystem and find co-founders or people to work with you on specific things. So I think it actually forces people to try other ways of engaging with potential collaborators and co-founders and whatnot. And I think it really comes down to your network and being able to use that really effectively to say, here's what I need. And does somebody who's in my network have that connection? And can you help me find the right person? So I always advise founders to have a wish list of people that they want to connect with who could be helpful to them, either by name or by description. So if you don't know the person, you may not be able to name who you want to be able to connect with, but you could at least say it's a founder of let's say a med tech company who's got experience in getting FDA approval and the US market. Chances are that if you tap into the startup ecosystem, someone will connect you with a person who meets that description and you'll get the value out of it. So those are probably two of the things that I think are real challenges, but certainly addressable.
Thank you, Colin. And this brings us to a really good point, and I'll get Kylie and Jazz and Scott to talk about this as well. Just the value of the cohort, and I think that can't be underestimated. One of the applicants for the current the program that we've got coming up is actually already an entrepreneur, but he contacted me and he said, what you want to, and he went, yeah, he wants the community that this is going to bring him. And I'll just say that this is the first time we're running, the program is now 100% online due to the previous lockdowns. And even though we're coming out of lockdown in New South Wales, we just really see the value of continuing to do it as an online program. And of course, you still get a residency at the studio as part of that, which you've got up till 6 months to use. But having that, as Colin said, it's the network and the value of the cohort that you really get from being part of the Studio Founders Program. And now that we're open to national applicants, your network is going to be really have a national reach and also an international reach, because we've got our various partners and sponsors, of course, and other speakers that come into the program. So maybe Kylie, Jazz and Scott, if you want to just talk about the value of the cohort, that would be great. Maybe Kylie, yeah, if you go first, thanks.
So I came and spoke at one of the founders things a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And that, because I said to Chantel at the time, having run my own companies for a really long time now, I just said, I just finally found my tribe. And I didn't realize, which is my bad, I didn't research enough, there was such a group out there. So it was actually really fantastic, even thinking about just being a resident in the studio. But the meeting everyone has been great. Like, I'm still in touch with Scott. We were talking on LinkedIn before that, but just being able to hear other stories and get inspired by the other founders has been really brilliant.
Thank you, Kylie. And Jazz?
I'll add to that. Thanks, Chantal. Look, I agree. Just hearing different perspectives and different experiences was sensational. We had quite a mixed group of people, the sorts of things that people were doing, which was amazing. There were people with physical products and a whole range of things. The other thing that I think was under the surface that I had heard about for a long time was this idea of the startup ecosystem, and what that meant was actually really hard to understand until we were actually with our cohort and also with the advisors who come into the studio. And there was actually a great speaker, I can't remember, the woman with the medical tech,
Carolyn from Sound Scouts.
That's the one, yes. And she was saying that giving back to the ecosystem is something that's really important. And when you're coming through the ecosystem, that giving back is this important aspect. And I can now understand that a lot better. And I really appreciate understanding that, having come through the program.
And that's so true. There is this incredible generosity from people within the whole startup ecosystem to really pay it forward. And I always get shocked when sort of I reach out to someone and they're not sort of within this sort of area, and they go and they're not so generous. Scott, so talk to me about the value of the cohort, especially as a solo founder.
Yeah, I guess I should say as well, I've of course known yourself and David and Tim before, and having this extra time with them was a real hoot, because I got to, I guess, learn things from another angle from their experiences, which is just fantastic. And then with the mix of the cohort, as startup founders, especially solo, you get drummed into focus, and what else focus. But actually working with the cohort, it's great to look at problems from these other tangents, and it's a creative sort of exploration to solve some of your own. So the synaptic connections are pretty special when you're bouncing off with people from slightly different businesses or greatly different businesses. So I found that very beneficial, to the point where you sort of do miss it once the cohort is finished. But like you have set up for us to still to catch up afterwards, which many of us do, and that's helpful. So there's a good alumni sort of spirit, as Kylie indicated. And I think as a solo founder, it's a unique challenge, and I was sort of building up my team at the same time going through I don't want to say course, Colin, but it was helpful just to have the voices in my head from not only the cohort, but of course, people such as yourself, Chantal, David, Tim, Colin. And so that really helped me sort of frame the right questions until I move on to using tools like Curious Things.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks. And Tim, maybe some final words of wisdom from you. Because we'll
yeah. So I think, and this is something that I have to tell myself. So this is kind of like autobiographical. I think Colin put it really well. We've got to have the courage to test our cherished beliefs. And that's the toughest thing of all. It's interesting that a founder has to have almost have to have three things. You have to have this vision for how the future is going to be, almost magical thinking. Then you also have to have this ability to be the exact opposite, kind of be brutal about the truth, right? And then ultimately have a drive that will get you through the emotional roller coaster. And to do that by yourself is a pretty dark place at times, or a manic place. And to do that as part of a cohort, I think it gives you a lot more resilience on what is a tough journey. to kind of change the world. So those are my thoughts for you. Chantal, thank you for bringing us together.
Thank you, Tim. Really, really fantastic thoughts. And thank you, everyone, for your contribution today. This has been a really great conversation, and I hope everyone attending gained something from this and learned more about what the program's all about. Don't hesitate. Applications are open. It's incredibly affordable. We sort of the program is supplemented. You get a one-on-one sessions as well with the commercialization expert, which last cohort we had Gary Lloyd, who was absolutely brilliant. People were raving about Gary. So we'll have Gary or someone very similar next time as well. So it's an incredible value that is worth much more than the few $100s that we have to charge for it. So thank you everyone today for your time. Really appreciate that. And anyone who has attended this, please just reach out with any questions or just apply, just simply apply, and hope to meet you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye. Have a great day.
Just do it.